Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. Today, we are starting book 2 of the Greenbone Saga, of peeking into the Greenbone Saga, Jade War by Fonda Lee.
May I just say, Hannah, you just held up your book. It looks so small. I don't know why. I have the ebook.
It's my face.
It looks small to me. I don't know why. I was like, oh, I thought that would be bigger. I guess I was just expecting like something the size of like Jonathan Strange.
It's definitely not.
It's like, boom.
Okay,
like,
so
slam that down on the table.
I will say it was published by Orbit, and Orbit is really good about like bigger words. Like they're not as like huge as a lot of other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I'm not gonna lie, before this morning, I've been moving, guys. Hannah's going a little bit crazy. I was at page like 80 and I had to get to page 200 and I was like, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. And then an hour in, I was like, oh, this can definitely happen. Like it does go by really fast.
Reads really easily.
And so I do think like the pages, like it's a book as big as my face. Like it's a little bit bigger than my face, but it's less than 600 pages with good font. I wouldn't say it's big font, but it's a good size font. So it is like,
I hate it when it's like a huge book and the font is tiny, where I'm like, now I feel old because I can't read it because it's so small.
For some reason, it always just makes me go into like Zoolander mode, where it's like, what is this? A book for a font for ants? And then you just like throw the book down.
I do get spoiled too by some of the features on my Kindle, where it's like I can adjust the font and the brightness and all that stuff. Like I do love a paperback, but there are some things that the Kindle does well, and adjusting the brightness and the font, those are some of the things that I really enjoy and become spoiled by.
I also like adjusting the font size as well. It's one of my favorite things to do on a Kindle, to be like, oh, this isn't really working for me. I guess I gotta go up. Like, it also does make you feel
it's
old.
Not in Helvetica. I better change that.
For a while, I forgot how to change it. And so somehow like I changed it by hitting something. And I like had to be like, how do I change the font size? It's so wrong. I can't do this. So I fully understand. But yes, we are diving into Jade War, part 1, through the first interlude, where so much happens, but not a ton happens. Like I feel like
it's weird because it seems like there's a lot going on, but when I'm reading it, I'm like, nothing's really happening. It's a lot of conversations here.
Yeah, it's a lot about what is honor, Laura. But what is honor?
Isn't that on the cover?
Magic divides, power corrupts, family endures. That's the plot of the novel.
Yeah.
So with a little bit of like killing a woman for no reason. So
oh my.
But before we get into those spoilers, Laura, what are you reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Okay, so part of my 12 challenge, one of the books that was recommended to me was Duffy and Son by Damian Owens.
Yeah.
This was recommended to me by a bookish bestie, Jones in the Books, and this is the sweetest book I have read in quite a while. Like, I don't have many books where I can like recall like crying at them, it's just a handful of books where I'm like, this got an emotional reaction out of me to the point where I'm crying. But Duffy and Son did it early on too, where there's a lot going on in this family, and you follow Eugene Duffy, who's turning 70, and his son Jim lives with him. His son Jim is 40. Eugene also has a daughter, Eleanor, and Eugene is separated from his wife for a really long time. She left Eugene and their children a long time ago. And so Jim is single and lives with his dad. They run a hardware store together, and Eugene is really concerned about finding Jim love. He's like adamant that he wants to find someone for Jim to be with. He doesn't want him to be alone. He thinks that that's what he needs and all this. And the book really becomes more about like the deeper struggles that this family has gone through, and the right ways to handle things, and how to deal with uncomfortable and difficult situations. And it's really just a very touching book. And I think a lot of the things that happen in this, I can relate to aspects of like things that happened within my own family, not specifically to me, but to people I am closely related to.
Yeah.
So it becomes really emotional for me at times, but there's also not just sad moments and heartwarming moments, but there's a lot of humor in this as well. So you have like whiplash and emotions when you're reading this. I listened to it. It's narrated by Jerry O'Brien, and Jerry is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful narrator. I would highly recommend if somebody reads this to go with the audio version, because it's the most perfect Irish accent you will encounter, and it's just a really wonderful book. I cannot say enough good things about this book. It's a short listen. I think it was only like 7 hours.
Okay.
But I really loved it. And people are really hitting it out of the park with these 12 challenge recommendations. So far, I've only been given books that I'm like, I've really enjoyed this.
Oh, good.
And nobody's given me one where they're like, I hated this. I want to hear your opinion, which I have done that to people.
Oh, wow.
12
Laura.
challenges. But no, I'm really pleased with this book. This was a really great one, and I would highly recommend it. It doesn't seem like it gets a ton of hype, which I'm surprised.
I haven't heard of it too much. I think I've
But
seen it a couple more times.
it's compared to A Man Called Uva, and I think that's
Okay.
an excellent comparison, because you do have like the old curmudgeon who, you know, is kind of set in his ways, that type thing. But it's a very different type of character and type of book once you get into the background of the characters. But really, really just an excellent book. I think it would be a good book to choose if you were looking for like a book club read.
Okay.
Yeah, so if anybody, I know there's like several people that do book clubs on Instagram or on Fable or whatever, and they're always like trying to figure out what to read next. I think this would make a good choice for that, because there are complicated issues that you can talk through, and then also light moments that, you know, so the discussion's not entirely heavy. But really, really good book. Thank you, Jones and the Books, for that recommendation. And yeah, everyone go read that. It's such an easy listen. My husband has listened to parts of it with me, and he's been absorbed in it like instantly. He hasn't listened to the whole thing, obviously, but when he's been in the car with me or whatever and I'm listening to it, he's immediately like in it.
Wow.
Whatever
I like that you
chapter I'm in.
listen. I like that you listen with your husband, because I'm usually just like, oh no, that's personal. No one wants to like dip in and out of a book that they've never read.
He will do it just because he's like, yeah, we're in the car together or whatever. And this is a easy one, I think, to just listen to a chapter and kind of hear what's going on. And then like you don't really need to know a ton of background, if that makes sense. But yeah, he even really enjoyed it and was able to just like instantly become absorbed in the story, and he was laughing along and enjoying the narrator. But excellent book, really excellent. So everyone go read it. Also, I watched a recommendation that was given to us on Discord. I watched Fleabag.
Oh, you right. Oh, you watched Fleabag. What were your thoughts?
I did. I really liked that too.
Okay, it's so good. It's such a good show, but
I binged it so quickly, and then I was like, where can I find season 3? And I'm like,
honey,
looking for it, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's how it ends. Oh, I was crushed that there are only 2 seasons.
It's such a good show. I
think that is probably one of the more clever shows that I have watched, in the way that it handles mental health and how it handles the really, I guess I'm talking about 2 things that I've read and watched that handle like unique family experiences and dramas and complicated relationships, because both Duffy and Son and Fleabag handle relationships that are messy and real, and they do it so well. And Fleabag was just really, really good. I love that we don't learn all the characters' names. I love that Godmother is just always Godmother. I love that Fleabag is just Fleabag. Priest is Priest.
Fleabag.
And
Priest is hot priest, just so you know.
I mean, that's what the audience knows him as.
Yeah.
Everyone else refers to him in the show as Priest. But yeah, I think that that's just such an interesting show, and I love the cutaways where Fleabag would look at the camera and tell us what's going to happen. And I thought it was so unique that when they introduced the priest character, how he picks up on her doing those cutaways, and it's like, where'd you go just there? Like, come back. What are you doing? How clever to have him that perceptive of her and know her so well that he's able to pick up on that and kind of be this like foil to her being this misunderstood character, and have someone that's able to understand and see what she's going through and how she's relating to her world. Like, chef's kiss.
There are a ton of TikToks that show like her like reaction of the show similar, and then they show like how it actually probably looks in real life where she disassociates. And I love watching that because it's like it's letting you in on the secret of it. And I watched a ton of those of people like doing that too, different flips. I loved Fleabag. I watched it when it first came out, like when season 2 dropped. I had been watching season 1. Did it first drop?
I think that's when it was 2020.
No, it was 2016 to 2019.
Oh, okay. Maybe I was just thinking.
I remember specifically because it was with my last boyfriend, and we had watched it together, and it was while we were still together.
Okay.
And it was also,
I don't know why I was thinking it was a pandemic show.
No, that makes. I think a lot of people watched it during the pandemic, but like
maybe that's when it became really popular, and like Phoebe Waller-Bridge like got onto my radar.
Yeah,
during the pandemic.
So I actually knew Phoebe Waller-Bridge from her first show that I think she ever wrote for, which was Crashing, which was a very bizarre British show. But I think it might be on Netflix. So if you're like in your Phoebe Waller-Bridge era, Laura, getting ready for that Indiana Jones movie.
Oh yeah. You know me.
Hannah has never seen a full Indiana Jones movie ever because I get really bored and I give up. I can't watch the whole way through. I get really bored and I like forget what I'm watching. I
understand.
I can't do it. I've had like so many people be like, Hannah, it's such good movies. And I'm like, listen, I've tried a million times and I always get distracted and I just leave the room. So like,
here's the thing. I also think they're good movies, but I can totally understand the perspective of I'm kind of bored with what's going on. And they also seem very cookie cutter-ish to me, where it's like, this seems extremely similar to the last movie. So I don't know.
Well, and like there's a moment where like you're supposed to think one of the characters dies and then she just pops up again. And I'm like, I don't, he wasn't sad. He was not sad that she was dead. So like what was that? So anyway, but Crashing.
The real reason people watch Indiana Jones is because Harrison Ford hot. Yeah. And that's how the cookie crumbles.
But Crashing also has the Viscount in one of his earlier roles. So
the Viscount
from Bridgerton.
Anthony.
Yeah. Okay. In one of like his earlier roles, he's very young and he like befriends a gay man and like the gay man kind of falls in love with him and he's supposed to be kind of a player and like it's very interesting. It's a very weird show. I don't like, you could love it and you could hate it and I would believe either one, but I actually knew Phoebe Waller-Bridge from that and I remember thinking it was a bizarre show, but I definitely like watched
acting in it or just a writer.
She acted in it. She was a very similar character, which is like zany mess of a person. And so yeah, and then she also wrote for the first season of Killing Eve and was an executive producer on that, which I watched with my dad. So
question, how much do you know about Phoebe Waller-Bridge? Like, is there a lot of similarities between her and the character of, or are there a lot of similarities between her and the character of Fleabag?
I think she's a little bit of a mess, and I do think like she wrote.
I just wondered if this was like kind of a self-insert character, similar to like how the Mindy Project is very much like this is Mindy Kaling trying to put herself into this character.
I don't know. I know that she like it kind of started as like a one-woman show type thing.
Okay.
And then she like ended up designing it as a script. So I do think that there's like a little bit of Phoebe Waller-Bridge in it because also Crashing has a little bit of like a character who's a mess and willing to ruin lives because of it. And like, it works out sometimes and it doesn't sometimes, it's like
so tricky though, because I think you can look at Fleabag as a character and be like, this character is a mess and is willing to ruin lives. But I feel like it's always for like a net good, if that makes sense. Like there's never a moment where it feels like malicious, where it's like, they're purposely trying to ruin someone's life. It's like they do something because they're trying to help somebody from avoiding this or that situation, or like this is not going to end well for them if they do this, or you know what, she just had something very bad happen in the bathroom. I'm going to throw myself under the bus and ruin this whole interaction and have people bring this up for months to come.
Well, I do think like that is true of the series we see her in. I do think we kind of got her in a weird moment in season 1 where she had done a ton of bad things, and we're kind of seeing her deal with the like guilt and ramifications of that. And like,
it's a unique take on grief as well.
Yes.
It was honestly just like haunting.
So like, I really do love the show because it is so human. And I think there are a million different ways to read it, but like, yes, a lot of the show, like as she goes on, is her like trying to do for the greater, like for the good of what she thinks will help. And sometimes it's a mess, but like other times, like before, she probably wasn't always a good person, and there were reasons for people to distrust her. Like when her and her sister Claire's like fighting is very like real. But yeah, it's such a good show. Like it sticks with you because I haven't seen it since I watched it the first time. But like there's so much of that show that just sticks with you. So I'm glad you watched it.
I was crushed that it was only 2 seasons.
I know. I feel so bad you were searching out a 3rd season.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
stupid me.
And she
might Google.
She might not have done the One Woman Show might have come after she did the TV series. I can't remember because she was kind of like, I can't say goodbye to the character, but I don't think a 3rd season is what I want to say. Like she felt like it had ended in that sense, but she hadn't like purged it fully from her system yet.
Sure.
But I can't remember the timeline of the two. But yeah, I think she kind of was like, nope, this was the end. And I like something where you know the beginning and the end.
Someone was just talking about that recently. It might have been somebody on Twitter that I had seen like a thread of this where they said that Brits know how to do TV better because they have like a solid beginning and end. There isn't just like infinite seasons and infinite episodes where like nothing happens, and then when something finally happens and the show ends, we're all like kind of in shock because we've gone on for seasons, right? Not a lot of progress.
Yeah, I also think with British television, because it's like has different kind of funding, that they like are willing to take breaks in a very unique way. And so a lot of their television shows are more like a snapshot in a season than it is like it has to be storytelling. It's like, no, it's okay to just like tell, like show you what's going on right now, and then we'll move on. Cause like I love a David Tennant show. We've talked about it on this podcast before, where he struggles with being a father of a daughter who has like specific needs, and they recently did a new season of it, and they hadn't done one for a while, and it's like, oh, there's still the story to tell, it just had a pause on it, so it's interesting. I haven't watched it yet, but I saw like a random thing on TikTok where I was like, oh, that show's back. So yeah, it's British television is much better in my opinion, but that's just
I don't watch enough of it. And I think I'm just like so used to falling into the trap of just like continually watching like some of these sitcoms where there's like never ending episodes, just because that gives me odd comfort. But yeah, and there's obviously not enough episodes of many British shows to be like, oh, it's done. I gotta rewatch the same 4 episodes again.
Fleabag, where are you?
So rewatches are much easier when you're doing something like Superstore or Parks and Rec. But Hannah, what have you been reading and watching?
So for reading, I got a free copy from FSG because they sent me some of the stuff from their imprint, called Our Migrant Souls. It's a meditation on race and the meaning and myths of Latino, by Hector Tobar. This book, I have a lot of conflicting feelings on it because like I thought so many parts were really good, and it discusses something that I don't think I think like a lot of white Americans, like guilty as charged, like we don't see a ton of our perspectives, and sometimes we don't reach out for those types of perspectives. And so this is the first nonfiction I've ever read about the Latino experience. Okay. And so like it was very eye-opening in some ways when I was reading about that, and like a lot of like the complications and the complexities of growing up when like a lot of people who like identify as Latino are also usually some part of like a native Indian person as well, Okay. And talking about the experience of like never being a whole thing, you know, or having to identify as one, because if you identify as both, you are seen as less than. And so that's a very unique perspective to discuss. And they also talk about like the difference between like being from Spain and like versus speaking Spanish and everything. And just kind of talks about like how it is to be in the modern era with like the Latino experience and identity. And I thought those were very fascinating things to read about, especially when you like gets in context of like, where are you from, or like being seen as an immigrant in America, and not belonging here because of things like the border, and having people talked, like having the people you are like in community with being talked about like by all presidents as like things you need to stop from coming across the border, you know, like, so there was a lot in there that I thought was very fascinating. But it also like there were parts of the book that really failed because he is an older gentleman. So some of his meditations when it came to discussing race with other marginalized groups was a little weird. And just felt a little off when I was reading it, and it made me uncomfortable. And like, why did you have to compare it to that? You know, like it just felt like he kept trying to find a comparison with other people who had gone through similar but different situations, and it fell a little flat. So when he was talking about other marginalized groups, some of it fell kind of flat and made me uncomfortable. Like he kept trying to find a connection there where it's like, we were similarly treated. And I was like, yes, but also like that was a different type of historical context and it just didn't feel quite right. And he also tended to, when he was discussing certain things about like community, he spoke in very general terms on stuff that like wasn't like based on study. It was like, all Latinos feel this way, or we all feel this way. And I was like, well, that is a little bit like disingenuous. Like, and
because I would like to say that all white women, but unfortunately not.
And he typically only he's like a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, and he's a novelist. So like he's a very good writer, but there were just certain parts of this where I was like, it feels like less of a meditation and more of like, you want to discuss this without researching it sometimes, and like that's less effective when you're speaking in like for
which kind of then comes off as generalizations then.
Exactly. And so like I didn't love it, but I mean I still gave it 4 stars because like obviously I'm a white woman. I don't think I necessarily should comment on certain things I had issues with. I think that should come from the communities that are who identify or who are part of the marginalized groups. And I don't think like the bad parts that made me feel a little bit like, I think I was going between a 3 and a 4 star. And I was just like, you know what? Like it's a 4 star because like, I don't have a ton of experience with this. And so I don't think I should knock it down unless I had more experience, right? Like reading these types of books. And I was like, oh, in comparison with some of these other great ones, it's a 3 star. But like, until I become more like adept at reading about this, I think I should like refrain from giving a harsh criticism. I just feel a lot of type of ways about some of the ways he wrote.
Very fair.
So I gave it 4 stars. I think it's like, I don't know. I would say, look for these types of books. I think everyone should read these types of books because like, especially as like 2 white women in America, it is a certain type of group that I do not think we discuss enough, or like, we have a weird complex relationship with it because like, I know growing up, we had a huge Hispanic community in our area, but it was also a very like, I remember having people in my class who like tried to get rid of some of their like identity because they were surrounded by white people. And so like, I think it's a very sticky topic that like we've had some interaction with, but not enough to like be well versed in. And so I wish I had known more before I read this book, and I'll probably seek out other nonfiction books to read more about this experience. So it was an eye-opening moment. So I was glad I read it. Even though it made me want to know more, and maybe not from this book in particular. So that is my complicated experience with this. And then something I'm very well versed in is lately my going to sleep show has been House.
Okay.
And Lori, the thing is, like, my going to sleep shows are supposed to be like, I watch the first 20 minutes by listening, and then I zone out and I fall asleep. Like they're there to help me like turn off my brain. Okay. Watching the first 20 minutes of House is the most infuriating experience of like, why was everyone so in love with this man? He is a terrible
I used to
person.
love that show. Oh, I never loved House,
but so many
I used
people
to
like
love that show.
loved House. Like so many people were like wanted him to get together with Cuddy, wanted
he's
him to do these
awful.
things. Like they were like, oh, he's so brilliant, he's so smart. And like I think I even identified with that as a little bit growing up. It's like, oh, he's so dark but brilliant. Like wouldn't a man like that be great? And it's like, no, he's terrible. He's awful.
We need to
and if
quit teaching young women like this is an ideal mate. Like, no,
he's
no,
not
no,
ideal.
no.
He's terrible. And like he's horrifying if you only watch the first 20 minutes of him. Like if he's not solving a problem at the end of it, he's just kind of a dick that you have to be around for 20 minutes. And it got me thinking about like how many different stories we had to watch, which was like kind of a terrible man and one woman who had to take care of him because he was so terrible. He couldn't take care of himself. And it's just like, yeah, this is why we have a ton of people in our age group who were like, women just aren't nice and aren't funny and aren't and it's like, it's because you literally were supposed to be the worst human being. Yeah, you were conditioned to be the worst human being possible. And some woman who you found super attractive was going to love you because of it. And it's maddening and it makes me so upset. Like watching the show is just like, wow, this is really bad. He's terrible. Like,
oh yeah,
he makes so many racist, sexist, homophobic comments. Like he's terrible to Wilson, who also is like the trope of the nice guy who lets his friend be awful. Like it's horrifying.
It's like, oh, Wilson, I can't get a handle on him. Oh.
Wilson sucks. Like, oh, he's just such a tortured heart. No, he's a dick. He's awful. Do not let people like adore this person. Do not watch the show as like he's a Sherlock Holmes. Like, no, Sherlock Holmes was just high a lot. Like, if you read those books, like, yeah, he's just kind of like off doing something. He's not as dickish as everyone makes him out to be. Like, he's just kind of alone and a little bit neurodivergent. Like,
yeah, I totally agree with all of that. Like, I used to love that show. I think I've seen every single episode of it because that was one of those that I would just like, I have to tune in, House is on. And I was more, I think, interested for the science of it all because I don't remember tons of shows like that where you were getting like tons of science, even though like that's just barely scratching the surface and they're probably not giving you totally accurate info. But like the other doctor shows we had at the time, they were more focused on the relationships and the drama. And this was one where there was actual like cases brought into this, where I can remember like specific episodes of that where I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this because that girl had like a tick that was randomly like on her vagina or something like that. And they of course had to find it in the final minutes of the show and saved her life. And like,
I always remember the nun
like
with the copper IUD.
Yes. I remember like different cases on that where I'm just like, oh, that really stands out to me. And then I could remember like random scientific facts from that. And I'm like, oh, but were they true? But yeah, the relationships depicted on that show are so unhealthy. The way that like Cameron in the first couple seasons is obsessed with House and you're
throwing herself
think, like,
at him.
Yeah, you're supposed to think, oh, well, he's got to have all these good qualities if like somebody who's just like this beacon of light like Cameron would love him. And it's also, like, no, she's deranged.
Cameron's not a beacon of light. She just chased down any man who was dying so she wouldn't have to have an actual relationship with them. Like, that's not healthy. Like, she only liked House due to the fact that, like, he was quote unquote brilliant and he was broken. And also, he wasn't broken. Like, he had pain in his leg due to a surgery, but the way they pretend like that gives him reign to be the worst human being in the possible world. And I'm like, they didn't make it bad enough for this to be believable. So why were we all eating it up in the early 2000s of like, totally, I would totally have that reaction. And it's like, no, you wouldn't.
No.
Like, no. Also, his cane isn't useful to him. It probably gives him more pain.
I feel like he doesn't use it in the right way.
They've done like everyone who uses a cane is like, that's not how you use a cane. And also like, why would you have that wooden cane? Like, it's incredibly hard on your hand and you're making the pain worse.
Right.
It's because they wanted him to look cool. Like they couldn't have him using an actual walking cane that would make you feel better. And that's also probably more humiliating than like it's not humiliating, but like for the character of House, it would have been
Yeah.
more more humiliating to him to have had to use that cane. They just wanted him to look cool on posters. So it's just
Yeah.
like, it teaches people bad habits. It's ableist. It's awful. Like, I can't believe we all loved the show this much. So yeah.
House is a bad man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Why? We need better shows. Like, I don't know. I think we need more shows that have like women in charge situations where there's women writing them, or because I feel like women writing love interests and relationships often comes off better on the page. I don't know who wrote House, but I'm assuming a man because of the way that the relationships with Cuddy and Cameron, and then later when Olivia Wilde was brought into the show.
Oh my
How
gosh.
these are all portrayed. Like, these seem very male centric, and I want to say that I'm not going to say I want to say. I am going to say that we need to have more shows that depict women in STEM, and that also like depict them in a positive light, where it's not like them throwing themselves at an extremely toxic man.
It is a man. It's David Shore. He also wrote Battle Creek. I don't remember if you know that show. I never watched a single episode. And The Good Doctor. So right now he's making The Good Doctor. So
okay,
mean doctor, but neurodivergent. Like,
I've never watched that either, but it doesn't bode well.
So yeah, that's what he does. And like, also, I don't know, I will say good on him for not letting Cuddy or Cameron or Olivia Wilde, who was named 13 in that series, because she had a number and she preferred using the number, because of course she did.
Not like the other girls.
Thank God they let them all not end up with the men they were with on the show.
Yeah.
Like, all three of them were like, nope and out of there, and like, good on them for not having that be the end, because it would have been terrible. Like, I remember when I was watching it, I thought it was so weird that House was with Cuddy by the time she had a child, because I was like, there's no way that man interacts with that child ever. Like, why is that part?
And then
of
you're
the
supposed to like
storyline?
think like, oh wow, he actually has fathering abilities, and you're like, no, he's terrible.
He's not good. So yeah, he's terrible.
And then the way that you're supposed to just believe that they could excuse all of his previous bad behavior and comments and want to be in relationships with him is mind-blowing. Like,
the way they know he's addicted to Vicodin and lets him be there in an operating room. Every time that happens, I'm flabbergasted. Like, that's not how high people work, guys. Like, you can't let them near the scalpel. Like, don't do that. It's such a weird thing, like how we treated alcoholism and like being high on television in the early 2000s, where it's like, oh, if you're alcoholic, like, no one can tell until they realize you've been sneaking it in your bag. And it's like, no, you can kind of tell. Like, most alcoholics have some kind of slur and some kind of wide-eyed look, and like, it doesn't work that way. So also, when you're high, you're not just going to be opening someone up on the table.
Right.
Like,
it's a highly glamorized version of addiction, which is very harmful too.
Yes. Yeah, because it's just not worth it. So I've been doing that and hate watching House lately. That's what
you're having a great time.
I've been stressed, but like, all of my comfort shows I've like burned out on over the past 3 years because I kept rewatching them too much. So
do you have like specific shows that you watch at like certain times? Because I've noticed like I don't know why I do this, but at like a certain point, if I'm like feeling a certain way, I notice that I'll start watching one show and then I'm like, I must not be doing too well because I've picked this show. And it's like, Laura, if you're able to recognize that, you need to figure something out.
I don't know if I've ever been like that. I do know that like certain shows, like this morning, I like was out with friends yesterday and I didn't drink enough water, and like, I don't drink anymore, obviously, because drinking problems, but I do drink like non-alcoholic beers and everything. So I'd had those, and then I didn't have like any water. So this morning I woke up and I was so thirsty and I was like, I'm so dehydrated. And then I like got overheated because I was so thirsty. I don't know if that happens to you. It happens to me. And so I like drank a huge cup of water. And then I had to turn on Gilmore Girls to fall back asleep. And I was like, I need like the fever dream of a Gilmore Girls sleep.
So Gilmore Girls used to be one of my like rewatch shows, but that show I get to a certain point and it's when Lorelai and Luke are gonna break up, and then I have to stop watching.
Yeah.
I can't watch those episodes, and it like crushes me. I just cannot watch them. And so I can watch up to that point and then I have to stop.
Right.
And
Well,
then
and
it's
season
like no
7 was
longer
a
a
different
rewatch.
writer. Like,
Yeah.
so it's not even the same voice. But I also, I finished Marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Oh, okay.
So that one's done. It was cute. It was what it was supposed to be. I don't know. I listened to the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel Boys, which was a offshoot of Gilmore Guys,
Mhm.
and that made me enjoy the final 2 seasons a lot more, I will say.
Okay.
So that was helpful, but I don't know. It was fine.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of TVs, like with the pandemic, all went on too long because like they had to take a break, and then they lost steam because we all went through collective trauma together. And then it's just like not
You
the
can
same.
also like feel the choices that are made about TV shows during that time where you're like, oh, they decided to bring the pandemic into this, or you're like, oh no, they are not bringing it in. And I don't know why that kind of also affects my viewing experience, where I'm like, I know they were shooting this during that time. And because like there's some shows where I'm like, I feel like Superstore, I appreciate their inclusion of the pandemic because customer service was a unique experience during that time. Also working in a big box store when there were like all sorts of like civil justice things going on, like racial justice issues happening, and they had a diverse cast of characters that could comment on these things and could relate to them as characters. I think that they did that really well, like their handling of the pandemic and all the issues of 2020 that were yikes. But there's other shows where I watch them and I'm like, I don't know, this feels a little much that we have to watch the pandemic being brought into this. I don't know.
Do we have to? Like,
yeah,
like kind of thing.
Some of them like, I kind of want to suspend my disbelief. I kind of want to suspend some of it here. I don't want to have to watch that anymore.
I would agree with that. So there's just like, I think Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you could feel the pandemic because like they wanted to travel the world, and their thing was like the Amazon money, no budget, that there was like a spectacle. But like when you had to do it from home, the spectacle left very quickly, and you're just sitting there with not a ton. So
I think that's also a thing too, where maybe it's not like a show where it would have been possible to incorporate the pandemic into it, like within the show, like the scenes, but you can feel the tone of the writing change, and it's because of what was going on at the time.
Yes. So it was just very interesting. But with that said, should we dive into book 2 of the Green Bone Saga?
Jade War.
We start literally where we left off, which is Barrow grave robbing Lan, but at a different time.
Which made me wonder, like, is this like just supposed to be a continuation, or is this like another attempt?
So in that chapter, it mentions like he tried, he couldn't get there because it was
I guess
too
I
well watched. Oh, okay. They kind of hinted at it because I was a little bit confused because I was like, oh, is this like he brought Moot and we didn't know about that in the final, But no, he said like it was too hard for him. It wasn't a one-man job, so he couldn't get there, and there was like too many people like in the graveyard because
it's too visible.
It's too visible, so he had to wait. But now he's back with Barrow, or he's back there with Moot, and they paid off the groundskeeper to let them in because we found out the Torch of Kakon has died. And they already have his grave dug for the next day, which morbid. But he's going to be buried right next to Lan. And so
probably like a family plot situation.
Exactly. And so they can actually gain access to Lan's grave, and Barrow's like, ooh, this is my Jade. I've been waiting. And so they dig the
an opportunity because he doesn't have to like do a bunch of work.
And he has Moot there with him. And so they dig in, they know that people are coming, so they can only grab so much Jade, which is like horrifying to Barrow, and he's like wrapping it carefully so he doesn't touch him. And there's also like a little bit of scene setting because we find out there's like more black market Jade on the scene right now because of the war going on between Mountain and No Peak clan, and there's lots of smugglers, and they're all prospering. And we also find out in this book that it's like really unique to get a grave because it's a huge sign of status, and like even the best families can't get one, but the calls are so important that they have to get one. But so they run out of the graveyard and they shoot the groundskeeper, and they try to make it look like a robbery, but like literally leave their disguises like 6 feet away, pretty much.
Which is weird. So they're in like the graves, like the groundskeepers, like gravesdigger like outfits, and then they just like toss them right there. I'm like, you guys are just idiots. What?
They're so dumb.
Barrow, I was a little disappointed when I was like, this is how we're starting this book with this man that I hate.
And he's literally
and then
right
going
where we left
into
him, like
another man that I hate. We have to celebrate. Oh my gosh.
God, yeah. And so we cut on over to Hilo, who's at the graveyard with everyone. He like seems to have internal thoughts about his grandfather, but he's kind of just like, well, he's dead now, and I'm glad that no one will realize that he was really losing a step, because that was dangerous to us. And he's also like,
we dodged a bullet there.
He's also constantly thinking about all the people who are going to slight him after the funeral is done. Yeah. Like, he's like, that person's not going to give me enough attention, and the pillar, that guy's not going to respect me.
Which this plays into like all his insecurities. It's just one of those deals where you're seeing how insecure Hilo is, and he's trying to figure out like, how is my role going to be moving forward? Am I going to still garner respect from these people or not?
Right. And he's also really mad because Mata is there, and she gave like a nice like eulogy almost about the torch, and he was just like, fucking stupid, she doesn't mean that. And then she's also there with Doru, and he's very angry about this, and Shay is like, just give them, like, we have to get him another day, we can't get him today. We also find out that
are they together, or they can just sense him there? They like know his aura.
I think he was standing there with the Mountain Clan, so he's not with Ait, but he's with the Mountain people who are all there.
Yeah, but they could like sense him because it's like a familiar thing.
Yeah. And so we also find out that Shay is in like full grief mode. She was like not speaking during like the time of silence, which in this book we also find out like there were like a lot discussed about her religiousness, but it's like everyone and it's mentioned by Wen that she's like very religious and she prays a lot and everything. So she was taking it very seriously, and she was obviously the grandpa's favorite until the very end. So she was very sad. Also, she was not hard enough on her grandpa though. I kept being like, really? Like, you were sad?
We'll get there later on in this section, but there's another part where I want to get into Shay and her handling of
anything,
some of the role models in her life. Like,
I know. So I love this part because Hilo tells his pillarman Tar, Mike Tar, he's like, I'm only going to be here for an hour. And then literally in the next section, Fonda Lee is like, 2.5 hours later, he's getting home. Loving
like
that.
SpongeBob cutaways, like
2.5 hours later. So he's meeting with a few of the Nopi clan members in Lan's old office, which has finally gotten a redo in the past year a little bit. Like, it's slowly getting changed because we've jump cut a year. We meet again with Aiton, the Greenbone who lost his arm the year before. He's like with his daughter and with his wife, and he asks Hilo if he would still take his life if he requested it, based on Hilo's promise this last year. And Hilo said he would. Aiton is like, I'm really glad you told me that, but you're right. I love seeing my daughter grow, and I'm really happy that I like stayed alive. And Hilo asks him if there's anything that they can do for him. And he says he wants to start brewing Hoji with his father-in-law and asks for some money, which Hilo like gives him the entire cart when he only asked for a horse. And he's like, we'll sell all of your Hoji and all the clubs. And it's like, don't take that away from someone until you know what the answer is. Like, you're way too loyal to the people you literally know on a first name basis and no one else.
It's like this grand gesture and you get it, but at the same time, it's like, slow down a little bit there.
You need to calm down. And she's just like, and Shay has to be like, could you give me the paperwork and we'll like get it done.
It should be one of those situations where it's like, more than happy to oblige, not like, we'll do all of the things and no drinks will be served unless they're yours. Like, okay.
We found out about this like one branch of the family tree where they're all like, well, that's kind of a rotten tree limb over there, but it's the Taiheis, and it's their grandfather's cousin's wife. And we find out that her son who's like barely a green bone, was arrested in Uiwa Island, which is south
Mhm.
of Keikon. And he was bailed out by a jade smuggler who's now refusing to return him to Keikon unless Hilo agrees to meet with him, and his name is Zapunyo. Um, and we also find out later in this book that like Uiwa is a place very similar to Keikon, except they didn't
Yeah.
have jade, and so they're looked down upon and they're seen as like less blessed.
There's
Even
an
though they're
interesting dynamic there.
yeah, it's very interesting to see how this is like getting played into and more intricate from the previous
Mhm.
book. But Hilo promises to go and get the cousin back, and she's super happy. Shay's pissed. He's agreeing to meet with others, and he's like, "Look, Zapunyo got rich off the war here. He wants a meeting. He needs to know that he can't just do this to Greenbone. So, like, I need to figure out, and I need to see that he understands where I'm coming from and
Right.
how this all works." So then she's like, "Are you ready to talk to Andon?" And he's like, "Yeah, but I have to do it alone." And Shay's like, "Dude, you're gonna try to cajole him into wearing great
Yeah,
jade again, and you can't do this, and you can't pull rank."
strong arming him. Like,
And he's just like, "That's none of your business. Leave now." So then we cut on over to Andon, who feels a lot of things about losing his adopted grandfather.
mhm.
He feels weird being around everyone. We found out he's like in exile living in Marinia with the Kyle's mom for the last year. He's like working in like the fishing areas and everything. And he's just working hard and, you know, doing what I did, which is like stop doing the career you were meant for and do something different for a while. So he talks to one of his classmates
And
who's
it's like
now
really happy though.
yeah, he's like really content and like happy to just kind of
Mhm.
work and be by himself. And he's like definitely in isolation, but he is very nervous being around here again. So it brings back a lot
Yeah.
of his anxiety. So he talks to one of his classmates who's now a finger, and then the mics bring him in. Lot. And then the mics bring him in to see Hilo. He's being super polite to Hilo, which like Hilo takes affront with, and it's like, dude, last time you saw me, you were awful.
Like you used me and then
couldn't
terrible.
like yeah. And Hilo's like badgering him about like quote unquote forgetting the fact that their grandfather brought him into the family and how Andon is wasting like away near jadeless people. Andon says he has almost enough saved to like get out of the call home and not be an issue or a burden on them. And Hilo's like, well, what do we do about the protection we have to give you because of Gaunt Ash? And he's like, well, you guys don't have to do that. Like, it's okay, you know? And he's like, of course we have to. You help save everyone. I can't just let you die.
Which
and then
I also feel like, so I feel like both of them handle the situation wrong because Andon's just like, no, that's okay. You don't have to give me any kind of protection. It's fine. And it's like, no, you need some kind of protection because there is literally a target on your back from this situation.
And then the way that Jade, like
right, like you're not defending yourself. And then the way that Hilo is like, well, we can't do it because you got us into this situation. And it's like, Hilo, like,
you're doing it because literally he saved you.
Protection because he changed the direction of this war, and you kind of owe him, and you're acting like he ruined things when he did not.
Right. And then he also like says that a man recently came up to Andon and was like, oh, I really respect you going jadeless and not being one of those goons. And he was like, yeah, he was from the mountain. You can't trust anyone. And Andon is like, oh, well, that ruins a nice moment. Like Hilo, then it's like, I'm hurt you didn't visit me. And he's like he's just acting like, yeah, last time I saw you, I didn't call you a mongrel, which is like pretty much a slur. And like, you should have come see me. People just say things when they're angry, Andon. And Andon's just like, well, you said I was no longer part of the family. So I was just respecting exactly what you told me. And he's just like, I would have invited you back in. And he's like, you would have invited me back in if I was wearing jade. Say it with me, Hilo.
Yeah, like it's contractual to you. Like, ugh.
And he's just like, I won't be a monster for you. So Hilo tells him then that he's like going to Aspinia to study because they can't put him anywhere. And this will give him an opportunity for an education. Andon does not see it this way. Like Andon has a lot of internal self-loathing for the fact that he is half Aspinian. And he's like, you are giving me the worst punishment I could ever imagine. And Hilo in this moment is kind of like, that's not the intention. Like, we're not doing this to get at you.
Which
but
I kind of sympathize. I shouldn't say sympathize. I kind of am more on Hilo's side in this stage of the argument where it's like, that's not really what we were going for. We're not like, haha, this is how we'll get him. We'll send him here. So he has to confront his heritage. And it's like, No,
he's just
this
trying to
is
get you
more
an
of a
education because
yeah,
Shay did that and it was
and
good
also
for
it's kind
her.
of like a diplomatic strategy, if anything, like kind of
Right.
sneakily, like, oh, we'll just like say it's to give him an education, but we could probably use this when he wants to come back, like Shay
Right.
did.
But like Andon has to take it on the chin with Hilo, but he immediately goes out and just screams at Shay. And he's like,
Mhm.
you were supposed to talk to him. And she's like, I literally did. And like this
This
isn't a
is it.
punishment. Like so he says he wished he died the day that they killed Gaunt Ash.
Which
And Shay
is
is like,
sad.
please don't say that. But then he like storms off and she kind of lets him go because
Mhm.
Shay just doesn't know how to actually talk to
Yeah.
anyone. I've learned throughout this book where I'm like, Shay, do you know how to have a conversation? Like, I
Shay
don't think
becomes
so.
disappointing in this first part of the
Yeah.
book. I'm
Yeah.
less on
That
Team Shay.
I'm same. Then we cut on over to Mike Ken, who finds out about the grave robbing, and he's worried to tell Hilo, who is definitely micromanaging him. Like Mike Ken tells you so fast that like Hilo is the worst micromanager in the world.
It's also one of those things too, and the other characters do say something to Hilo about it, where they're like, "Look, you are not the horn anymore. You need to focus on being the pillar and lay off him and let him be the horn. Like,
And he seems
let him
pretty
do it his way."
effective. Where he's like, hey, but he also seems to be like a carbon copy of Hilo when Hilo
He's
was in the
trying
horn.
to be
Yeah.
a carbon copy and can't do it.
Where he's like dating a woman who has no green bone in her, where he's like, oh, I'm always like doing my job. I do like that he's like, he actually has some like self actualization where he's like, I keep getting invited to all these events when everyone tried to be like total like jerk before.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. And he goes and he tells Mike Tar about this, and they go tell Hilo together about the grave robbing. And he wants them, but mostly Tar, to look into it. And he's like, you were supposed to find this guy who killed Lan. It was definitely Lan or it was definitely the guy who killed Lan because we were the only ones who knew that he was buried with his Jade. And so it cuts over to Mike Tar, like he's like a private eye or CIA agent for Hilo now. And that's why he is.
That's like his new
Pillarman.
role. Yeah.
And so like he gets to like go on missions and like find out who killed Lan.
He's basically just a secret hitman is what it is.
Yeah. And so he like goes and he kidnaps the person who gave the order to Barrow.
Yeah.
And like the guy's like, I don't know his name. Why would I have known his name? Like,
Like,
no one
this
knows
is just
Barrow's
some
name.
lackey. Like, we just
Yeah.
found some random idiot.
Like, come on. And so he like goes to torture him more, and the man is able to kill himself, and Tar is furious. And then Ken is like Ken just like is like, don't worry, the kid's an idiot, he'll show up sooner or later. Like he's comforting his brother in the weirdest way.
Yeah.
And so you do find out that the mountain has to retaliate the killings of Ken's men. So, and kills one of Ken's men and puts one of them in the hospital. So it really doesn't look good in the news because like everyone's just like day 0 of no killings based on the clan.
This many
clashes.
days without any kind of accident.
You just have like some person who like rips off day 5 and they're like, I guess. So, we cut over to Shay, who is again disappointing. She's finally having growth problems in her role. She's being like way too cutthroat with lantern men. And she's like, well, someone outbid you. So we went with the other guy. And the guy is like, okay, well, I paid dues to this organization in order to have some type of benefit. And if you're not benefiting me anymore, why would I continue
Why
to
would I
support
stay?
you?
Like,
And she is kind of just like tired. So she's really short with him. And her luck bringer Hammy has to like step in and assure the man that sometimes they have to bring in new blood, but don't worry, we're gonna like give you a discount on your dues this time. And she gets mad at Hammy for speaking out of turn, but then he's like, dude, you bungled the situation. I was just trying to fix it. Like, you affronted that guy.
My job as master luckbringer is to like help you out and advise you, and you're not handling this situation well.
And she's grieving, of course. And so she's like, well, we're just hurting for money. We like can't make these kind of deals right now. And he's like, that's fine, but you have to walk a fine line. So he leaves and Woon is left there. And he's like, well, like you're trusted because you're a call, but you still have to earn trust. You can't just like rest on that. And she's like,
which
well,
is like hard for her to reckon with, like, oh, I have to have more than just like people trusting that I would be good at this because
Yeah.
I'm a call.
And I
Like,
was trained for it. Shouldn't they just believe me? And it's like, and he's like, well, you already hurt because you didn't make one of these like family members a luck bringer. And she was like, well, I wanted to do it based on merit. And he's like, you're not here based on
right,
merit.
you're here based on your, like, I would have been in that position based on
Yeah.
merit, and you jumped in and took it from me based on your last name. So
Well, hello, Pot. That kettle over
yeah,
there is black. That's strange. Like, yeah. So she understands. She does accept it, but she reiterates they need every advantage to like build up their coffers again. Woon says she needs to be slow to get the clan's trust and knows that like Lantern Men are loyal because she's a call, so she can do this. She thanks Woon and tells him to go home, but he tells her he will wait and like keep working because he left land once and trauma.
yeah. I still feel guilty about that. And it's like, I don't know that you should feel that guilty, really.
He sent you home. It sounds like you were just doing your
Like,
job. Like,
that's really out of your hands at that point.
I had a pillar once. She gets a call from Turaho, the weatherman of the Mountain Clan. Ree wants to have the KJA vote to open up the mines again and asks how like Hilo will sway the vote. She's like, I don't know. I don't make his decisions. And Ree is like, this is no longer beneficial for either party to keep the mines closed. So we need to do this. It will hurt the economy and it makes us less aggressive with foreign nations, which is a huge part of what we're trying to do as a tiny island nation.
Here's my thing in this first half. Like, there's so many times where I'm like, am I Team Mountain? Like, they're making so many good points.
Yeah, but also they're the biggest hypocrites. Like, this is their mess. This is why I'm not Team Mountain.
I know.
It's like, it's literally your mess. And then you're like, you guys are being unreasonable about this. And it's like, they're being unreasonable about your bad. You're just dealing with the consequences of your own actions. Where
she's like, well, how are you going to like deal with the results of that audit that we figured out last year? And they're like,
But they just keep being like, could you just stop talking about the audit? Like, come on, it's over.
You're just gonna have to get over that.
And Shay is like, this is the consequences of your own actions. Come on. And then she points out that she's like, hey, she wants the mountain to pay. And do you want me to tell the Aspenians that you were dipping into the the mountain is like, hey, we know you're dipping into your jade reserves. You need to actually give them to your people. And you are like hemorrhaging yourself. So you need to open the mines now. And she's like mad. So she's like, well, should I tell the Aspenians about the mountain's contract with the Ugatanians? And, and she's like, especially since the Aspenians are trying to fight the Shatar against rebels who are trained and supported by by Yucatan. And Rhea's like, fine, whatever, and hangs on the phone. And this is why I'm not Team Mountain. Because like
this isn't the only instance. There's like some to come, but I'm just like, am I Team Mountain? I am unsure.
I think
they're making some good points.
I think all of them suck.
I mean, yes,
but Ree's like, we can't drag our feet anymore. Non-green bones are getting just as worried about the crisis in Urtaco, and like, this is bad, and they want to meet. So we cut on over to Barrow, who's like, I'm so awesome in my in my apartment. I'm taking SN1 every day. I'm wearing Jade. I'm learning how to do stuff. He's going to like underground training clubs right now because with like SN1 more people are using Jade and training in Jade. He's also selling shine to people all the time, and I'm like, dude, that's gonna run out eventually, but okay. He and Moot get approached one night by a guy named Soradio who says that he has a job for people who aren't afraid of dying and want Jade. And Barrow's like, hard sell, LOL.
I'm in.
But Soradio swears that he's part of like T Pesagua, a jade trafficking ring, and business is good with demand high, but it's risky. And they can't rely on the abuke anymore because the people like they just need more. And so with people who are on SN1, they can pass for green bones. So why don't they join forces? And poor Moo is sitting there like, well, we're training to murder some of the makes. And Barrow's like, the guy's, he talks too much. Like, he has too many opinions. I want him dead now. And it's like, dude, like, you promised Moo you would teach him how to kill a green bone, and he just
the way
revenge.
That Barrow is so like heartless about some of this stuff, where he's just like, what an idiot. I'm like, are you kidding me? You just used this man for how long? To your own
Child, like
benefit?
he's a child. And he's
Oh.
sitting there like to this 14-year-old, like, you have way too many opinions. I
Like,
think
you
you
make
should
all
be
these
quiet.
promises and then you're just immediately just like, I wish this guy
Again,
would take off. I can't
this-
stand him.
This book is just people dealing with the consequences of their own actions and hating
It
every
is.
second of it. Like, and so we cut on over to Professor Morrow, a foreign studies professor who like just tells, we find out that it's Shay's new man friend.
Mhm.
And he is one of the most annoying people I've read in this book, because every time they
I
talk,
didn't think he was that annoying.
I just get sick of like every time they talk, they have to have a serious discussion. And I'm like, this is the beginning of a relationship. Could we have like 2 scenes where you two are actually having
Here's
fun
the
and not
thing.
just dumping trauma on each other?
We're meant to know that he's an intellectual. And that's why it comes off that way, I think, Hannah.
I know,
Because
but
I think Fonda Lee wants us to know like this is an intellectual man. And so then we have to like know that there's gonna be deep discussions had because this is a professor and they
Here's the
would
thing.
really think through things.
I also think it doesn't help that I've definitely dated this guy and it's exhausting. Like, it's so exhausting to be like, would you mind taking the train? I know it's Trey's like chic or whatever. It's not, but let's just take the train. And it's like, it's a train. It's a subway. We can
It's
take the
also one of
subway.
those things too, like the more we learn about Marlowe and his character, we're supposed to like think like, oh my gosh, like what a fantastically interesting person. And it's like his story is not that out there.
No, like we have Andon, we have other people who have had weird, tragic backstories.
I know,
Like,
and
we're
it's like-
supposed to pretend like it's really like. Even at one point, he's like, "Do you feel like?
Do you
like
feel differently about me now? And
She's like, "No, I have a cousin who's done that. The same exact
my
thing. happened
cousin
to him."
has pretty much a similar background, only
Literally
worse.
the same background, but worse. It's like,
And he's like, how do you feel about the fact that I wear very little jade? And she's like, I mean,
I
a little
don't know.
weird, but not
I mean,
too
it's
bad.
mostly weird because like my brother's gonna be bothered by it, but like I really don't care what he thinks most of the time. And he's like, but I might. It's like, okay, like,
But then in like the next breath, he's like, I remember you guys from school. I really sucked at school and didn't like it, and that's why I started to read books. And it's
I can't stand him.
the more we talk about it, I'm starting to hate him so.
Well, I'm like, they get to dinner and she's like, so, I'm like, Shay, you're a smart woman. Like, you were college educated. And she's sitting there like, that was a really interesting question you asked. What are your thoughts on it? And it's like,
Yeah, because
his
you walk
question
in,
to
she
his
walks in on him
students, like-
doing a lecture for his students, and she's like, what do you think the answer is? And it's like,
then he just gives a really long-winded answer.
why do we have to hear this?
I
Come
get
on.
it, like it's telling us like all the intricacies of like the foreign nations and everything, but like there's
And
only
that's
so
why
many
this
times I can
character is
read about
brought
it.
in, honestly.
Yeah.
That's why this character is brought in, because we're gonna get here soon, but this relationship is not long for the world.
Oh, oh, we don't get to that in this part yet. I don't know if I know
Not
that they
yet,
broke
but I
up,
can already tell.
okay.
I haven't read past the first
I know.
interlude, but I can
Okay.
already tell. I'm foreshadowing. This
I know.
relationship will not last.
Like, could you imagine if he's working for the Mountain and she had to find out that her boyfriend worked for the Mountain and he was this horrible of a date? Like,
Here's the thing, that would not surprise me.
I know,
Shay
but
in
he's so bad.
Shay in this section is
Maddening. She's just sitting there like, and what are your thoughts on this? And it's like, Shay, you have a
the
brain.
other thing
like,
too, they're being like weirdly secretive about this relationship, and it's like literally no one cares. No one will care because this
he's
is
a green bone. Like,
this, I was gonna say, this is not like an Aspenian. This is not Gerald. People are not gonna care.
oh my god.
And then she does
Professor
like have a
Morrow.
moment where she's like, this is different than my relationship with Gerald. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, they're out to dinner. She like he definitely feeds into her want for normalcy, because at one point he's like, could I please pay for dinner? And she's kind of like, well, now you're kind of offending this lantern person who was really excited about like giving me a free meal. Like that's
Yeah.
just what it's like being a call, and you're making it really weird, bro.
He's like,
and she's like,
chivalry must prevail.
I'm typing so nice paying for your meal. Like, I know it's really expensive. And Shade's even like, I probably would have picked a cheaper plate. Like, it's
Like,
just the biggest.
I was just purposely trying to use perks here and you're ruining it.
Yeah.
But then instantly she's like, I guess it is kind of sweet. I'm like, Shay.
Shay. They also met at an alumni event, which is like so. Yeah. And she's like, oh, I noticed he was good looking, but I actually just wanted to know more about like what he was talking about. And then he was like, can I see you again? And it's like, oh, so he definitely thought it was a date and you didn't.
Yeah.
So
I also like I brought it up, but he mentions like, I don't know if it's in this section, like this chapter or not, but he mentions that he went to school with them, like they were all in the same class, I think.
Yeah, he does talk about this. So
I didn't realize that Hilo and Shay were in the same class.
It feels like they're not in the same class. It feels like it's just worded wrong. Like they were in the same timeline. And so like because they had overlapping classes, she like graduated topping him a little bit, but like because they were in the same grades, I think, because I was confused by that too, because
it made it sound like they were in the same grade, like they were both in like 9th grade at the same time. And then
I don't think
I thought it was like there's an age gap, like he's older. I think she was always like trying to get top of the class.
Yes. So there's a 2-year age gap, I want to say. And so I feel like because it's like he was a senior and then everyone remembers because just 2 years later that she graduated and she got higher marks than him.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. Yeah, it's really weirdly worded, but we kind of go into like the K-Con and a speedy alliance because this is great foreplay for them, and how it's like
it really turns them on.
Being between two continents is really hard, and like Morrow points out that like all of this can help put K-Con on the map and all this stuff. And then he's like, "So do you remember me in school?" And she's like, "No."
he's like, "Good," because I was terrible there.
It's fine. I was very bookish. And like looks off into the distance. And then they have sex
he's
together.
Like your typical like broody, like smart man.
And then they have sex. And it doesn't sound enjoyable really, but like
it's not really that detailed. It's just like, oh, it's over.
I just remember she's like, could you get me close with your mouth? And I was like, you can have multiple orgasms. Like you don't have to have that happen.
You can't just stop there.
Like, you don't have to like pause it and then like
nobody's telling you that that's the end.
Shay, did you have sex education? Like,
no. She was too focused on like trying to beat Hilo.
Yeah. And so then she like peeks around the apartment. She sees a photo of 2 girls and he's like, those are my nieces. And later, I love this because like it barely describes them, but later on he's like, oh yes, they're not Kekanese at all. And she was like, I thought they weren't.
like obviously they're not. Like,
so anyway, he is also very insecure about the jade because like he only wears what he graduated with. So he has like 2 earrings and he's like, I never fought of one jade. And I ran away from a fight once. And he's like, I'm shocked I fell for someone as green as you. And it's like, you've been on like 3 dates. You did not fall for her. Calm down. She's a bit off of her element because he like isn't more intense about his shade and she like doesn't know how to deal with it. So she ends up going to see her brother the next day. He's been working all year to get back to fighting power. And she's like, hey, you don't have to do that anymore. And he's like, strong men want to fight for strong men, Shay.
Just no.
And so she tells him about the mountain calling and about the truce proposition. And he's like pissed. She's like, I think we should probably agree with them. She's like, we can't go on like this. It's a smart truce. And she's like, and he's like, well, I wanted us all gone last year. And now she's lost leverage. And she's like, and we didn't gain it. Like we just made sure they didn't win. And they've like all been hurt by this. So they need money. And he knows the truce won't last long. And he's like, this will just make Ait strong again. And she's like, well, now we know what she's doing. So we can be strong again too.
Right.
And she's like, honestly, like, there are more civilians out there than there are green bones, so like we have to be worried about their reaction to this as well. And she's like, think of what Lan wanted, and he's like, I'm not Lan. Well, he's like, he didn't get a lot of what he wanted, Shay. And it's like, I just love the like, he didn't get a lot of what he wanted.
Always get what you want.
you know why? Because sometimes you're dead. Like, that's pretty much the implication. But she can sense like this convinced him, and he's like, fine, I'll talk to Ken about this. And then when Hilo's wife comes down to her first entrance of this novel, and she's like, Hilo, I found out about a plot baby.
Yeah.
And we found out that Ani had a baby and had told Lan about him 2 years ago, and that it's definitely Lan's, even though she wanted it to be her boyfriend's. Like,
Yeah.
literally written
She's like-
in the letter.
She's like,
What a dick.
I didn't tell you because I was really hoping it wasn't yours, but the thing is, it looks exactly like you.
Speaking of people who are not long for this world, Laura.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm gonna make so many jokes. I was so horrified when this actually happened.
Even Shay's relationship in this first interlude lasts longer. Oh,
Than poor Ani, who just wants to be left alone. The baby, the spitting image of Lance, and like Wen's like, oh look, it's Lance's twin, and Hilo's like, I don't see a resemblance.
I don't see it.
Like, Hilo. So then we find out that he's getting ready to go to Uiwa, and Wen doesn't want him to go. He's like, everyone, I'm in danger everywhere, so I'm fine. And she's like, no, but like, it's not going to go after you right now. You're way too hot for like that to happen. And I feel super apprehensive about this. And he's like, don't worry.
He's like, don't worry. You just go write a letter to my former sister-in-law and see if you can get that baby back over here.
Yeah.
We need to raise it.
Give me that baby.
Like,
I want to
need
raise
that
that
thing.
baby. I want to raise the baby in my own image, or Land's, I guess,
Yeah.
because I found a new
Actually,
brother.
my own image.
Yeah, my own
not
image.
Land's.
And then we found out that like Wen is a little bit more calculating than we first.
Yeah.
Like, we knew that in the
I
last
enjoyed
book, but
this,
this is
though.
the first where it's like, yeah, I knew I was never going to have as much power as I wanted. And when I met Hilo, I was like, I'm definitely going to marry him because it's going to give me the. And we find out later, she's like, I wanted the power of the Horn's wife, and now I have the power of the Pillar's wife, which is a
and
great.
they're very different roles.
And she was like, well, I wanted the other one, but I guess it's fine. And it's like, don't worry, Hilo wanted the other one too. So like, and then we have a small little jaunt over to Uiwa. They're picked up by people described as gangsters wearing a bunch of fake jade. Hilo brought Tar, Duan, a strong fist who he wants to test with how he's been getting on with Ken, and it's like, dude, stop micromanaging. And Vin, because he was about to be promoted, and then Law, who was Annan's classmate from the last book.
He's like, I need to keep a close eye on him and make sure that I have his trust. It's like, okay, come on.
They go to Sapunyo's house, and he's trying to show off force by making it look like he's more respected by being flanked by more people than Hilo. And Hilo's like, sure, whatever, dude. And Hilo points out that Supunya wants him there so badly. He was just curious on what's going on, because he's like, you're not even as important as the judge under my shoe. Supunya tries to point out how much the Greenbones live in the past, and that they are now people in Uiwa are just as powerful too, and that being Kekanese doesn't mean you're descended from the gods, so they need to like come down from the mountain pretty much.
This is a very interesting dialogue, I thought.
It's very interesting to like see how they interact with like people who are not from the island, and like,
well, and I think it's also interesting because throughout this section we get these glimpses of how the Kekanese kind of are like a little bit in their own world, where they're like, all that matters is us and being Greenbones and Jade and our own situation that's happening, and we're learning like these other things that are happening throughout the world and how that affects the Kekanese, but they're still like kind of not there yet.
Right. And they don't seem to understand that like the world is much bigger than them, because
like,
they're
this
like,
is on your doorstep. You need to.
It's again being like a big fish in a little pond, and being
Yes.
perfectly happy in that little pond, and being like, this little pond's amazing. Everyone wants to be us. And it's like, nope, lots of people are in different ponds right now, and they're all fine.
Other people don't care about you.
And so he asks to become a lantern man of sorts for Hilo, so to like let him smuggle Jade out instead of Hilo trying to hunt down all of his different spies. And he's like, we're very similar, and Hilo's like, no, we're not. Jade is a way of life for me, and it's just a thing.
He's like,
to you.
you're a thief, and we're not the same.
And he's like,
this is a no-go.
And he's like, I respect that you spoke your mind, so I won't kill you right now, but like, this must stop the smuggling, and no Greenbones will be bought with like dirty Uiwan money. So we got a little bit of racism thrown in here. Hilo, you're really batting a lot. And so Sapunyo is like, money is money. I'll take this somewhere else. And Hilo's like, I won't even accept this from you. And she's the other main person. Sapunyo lets them leave, but is disappointed and says he swallowed his pride enough for Hilo. Hilo finds his cousin sunbathing with a woman, and he beats him up in anger for everything that has gone on. So They go to the airport, and some of the corrupt police officers under Zapuno is there. Hilo goes out and tries to get them to stand down, saying greenbones don't use their skills on non-greenbones unless provoked. They fire
And then
at
they
him.
immediately shoot at him,
Yeah,
which
and
he knew was going to happen.
I know. And a really cool battle scene ensues because Fonda Lee writes a good battle scene.
Yeah.
Where one of his men gets shot and he's like, this is really embarrassing that I got shot. I didn't like that.
Well, it happens all so fast, and like
Yeah.
certain things are described, but then it's like, it's literally about like a page long description.
Yeah.
And then they're all just kind of standing there like,
well, and they just demolish the police
like,
officers.
There's
because
nobody
they're
left because they're not really that skilled, and we're super skilled. That was kind of bad, wasn't it?
And they're like, this isn't fun. And like Lot feels a lot of types away because this is how he's
never
his,
killed
like, first
somebody.
person, and it like wasn't even a fair fight.
Yeah.
And he also did it the same way his dad was known for fighting, which is throwing knives. And Hilo was like, you throw just as well as your dad. And he's like,
the way that Hilo like tries to comfort him is not exactly comforting, because like on the trip back, he's kind of checking in on all of them after this, and especially Lot, because of course Lot has no father figure, and so Hilo must step in because fathers and sons. But it's just like, Hilo, I don't find this the most comforting for you to be like, you are a lot like your dad.
Yeah.
But you're better. It's like, no. Oh.
Well, and then he's like, hey, we don't kill people because we want to kill people. We kill people for the clan. So it's the least selfish thing you could do. And it's like,
for the greater good.
Take on this burden of emotional damage and trauma, because don't worry, other people will benefit. Like, it's just not great. So then we go on over to Anton, who like conks himself out on an 11-hour plane ride to Aspenia. And he begins living with two people who moved there from John Loon and often take in exchange students, Mr. and Mrs. Hyen. They're super nice, but they're a bit nosy if he is of rank as a greenbone, which is like special status. And he says that he was a graduate, but he does not wear jade. And he learns about the Ortakan War, and this is another moment where we kind of find out that like Kakon is in his own little world where they're like, do you guys talk much about the war? And he thinks they mean like the civil war among greenbones.
Yeah, he thinks they mean like the war between the mountain and No Peak,
but they mean like the world war. No, the world war. And there's a lot more, like they discuss like different types of like people in Aspenia are starting to become lawyers and professors, and like it's a little bit more about education there. Then
there's a lot more diplomacy and things like that are happening.
And he starts going into an immersive learning experience. Oh, he can't sleep that night because he's never been in a place that has noise. Because he's been very secluded his entire life. So he starts an immersive learning experience to learn Aspenian. We also find out he's there to get his associate's degree. He's the only one from KCON, and like everyone kind of cloms in with their other people, like, and he kind of reserves himself to making no friends. He's super helpful with the Hyens though. And one day he's walking home, he buys a soda, and he witnesses a stick up with two men demanding money from the owner and bashing his head in a little bit. He doesn't really do anything to stop them, but he feels kind of bad about it. So he goes home and he talks to the Hyens, who say that it's due to a man named Boss Cromner, who has gangs in Port Massey, which is the area that they're in, or Southport. And Andon is like, oh, so it's like lantern men, and it's all cool then. Like, it's weird that they were so brutal, but okay. And they're like, no, Andon. There's so many sections in this, like in Andon's POV, where it's like, no, Andon.
And it's like this thing where it's like a harsh reality of finding out that the world that you've grown up in and understand is not the world that other people are living in. And so like, even though like the Andon chapters are not my favorite, it's one of those things where I still appreciate what they're giving to the book, because this is the perspective where we're learning the most about other factions,
cultures and factions. Yeah. And then another day and they say like it's different because like in KCON, like people get something for their tribute. Here they get nothing. It's just a shakedown.
Right.
So then on another day he's walking, and a woman who's running away from her drunk husband runs out into traffic and is stopped by a boy on a bike. The boy is able to deflect the husband, and Andon is shocked that there are people here who use jade. And it's like, Andon,
what? There's a green bone here? And he kind of becomes obsessed with it.
Oh, yes. And the boy, he's like, you wear jade? And the boy's like, sure thing, island boy. And like, wheeze right out of the
and we're like, hello, love interest.
Hello, love interest. So nice to meet you. The clans meet. They finally make agreements to separate out territories in exchange for opening up the KJA to let the oversight go by. And the calls get Doru's location and Andon's protection as long as he doesn't wear Jade for killing Ash, They also agree to stop smuggling, or to stop the smuggling, which No Peak needs help with, and the Mountain was like less interested in. And then after it's done, I asks to meet with Hilo alone. And she's like, hello, you kind of suck as the pillar and don't want this job. So like, let's combine forces and have me be pillar. And Hilo's
like, remember how I brought that up, that I wanted to like make this just one clan? I'm still kind of pushing for that. How do you feel about it now? And they're like, still no. And
he's like, over my dead body. And she's like, oh, the calls are so frustrating and won't let me take over everything. And like,
it's like you the room. Never really tried to make this more appealing. I don't know what you're thinking.
She is like it's like, I understand that to get into the position of power, you just murdered everyone, but like, it's because you're a bad negotiator.
Yeah.
Like, you're terrible at this.
Well, and that's what, like, in this section, I'm thinking, okay, but you've literally offered no reason why they should do this. You're just like, you want to do it now? It's like, no.
And she's like, oh my gosh, why won't you let me do it? Like, I just want to do this one thing.
I just want
to
to do
it. So they make the announcement that they've gotten to peace and everyone's happy. Hilo meets with the family. It's like, yeah, let's all pretend it's over and tell everyone it's over, but like, it's not over.
It's not over.
Like every person who just had a breakup, like, let's tell everyone it's over, but it's not over. He says that they need more white rats in to figure out where their enemies are. They think the Espinians like don't need more Jade. They're like, we can't help them. We need to rebuild. It's not going to work. But they want to make sure that they aren't getting any more from Zapuño or people like Ayamada. And Hilo is overlooking Shay's hard work hardcore. He's like, well, Shay will get it done. And she's like, yeah, it works just because you say it. And she's like, this sucks being surrounded by a family who were former fists. And his answer made me so effing mad towards Hilo, where he was like, oh yeah, just marry someone and then you could have someone at the table on your side. And it's like, wow, that's
not how this works.
So she's like quiet, and he teases her about how Woon is totally in love with her, which I hated that this happened in this book. I'm really upset about it. So
Shay's love interests,
it's just,
we'll get there.
It's a long range, but he goes to bed. He wakes up Wen for sex when she's 7 months pregnant. And then he's like,
oh my gosh, her boobs are bigger. Wow. Like,
and then he just wakes her up by sticking his dick into her thigh, which is every woman's favorite way to be woken up.
No, it's not. For listeners, that's not.
We do not subscribe to that method of seduction.
Let us sleep.
And then he talks to her about everything. She says she thinks people are afraid of Espinia invading Kekon, and they have to show strength for the people. And she's like, I see it because I actually interact with civilians. And he's like, well, why don't you speak up? And she's like, well, sexism.
And she's like, because there's this thing that no one respects me because I am what they call a woman.
And he's like, why would you care? You're an extension of me. And it's like, well, you don't actually fix the problem ever, Hilo.
No.
You just like think because she loves you, she's exempt from it. It's the worst.
The other thing too, it's like, if she were to bring something like that up, he would not react that well to it. Like, he would, he doesn't respect her opinions.
No,
generally, like,
it's only when they're alone and he can like tell her he respects them because he's actually thinking about her in that moment. But he would definitely take affront if she brought up to everyone, like he would disrespect her.
Yeah, it's different when it's like bedroom talk and he's like, I love this woman so much.
And they just had sex.
She has great boobs.
She didn't yell at me for waking her up in the middle of the night by like,
how great of her to indulge me. And he's like, wow, and she has some good opinions. And it's like, this would be a totally different scenario if you were amongst all of like your respected clan members, and she is someone who is a stone eye and also a woman that is going to try and bring something up. I don't think so. Like, that's not
how this is going to work.
Well.
And so she admits that Ani wrote to her and says not to write her again. And this is the most maddening thing about Wen, because she takes it so personally, where it's like, it kind of sounds like she just doesn't want your family to reach out because Lan is dead. It's a pretty
whole interaction was weird, because it was like, she tells him about the letter and then she kind of twists it almost, where she's like, you know what should happen? I think you should go in person. I think that would mean a lot if it came from you in person. And it's like, no,
You
that's
guys just
not
want
what
to
she
steal
said.
this woman's baby.
She said, leave us alone.
Yeah. And she's
I
like,
only wanted to talk to Lan because he was the father, and Lan is gone now, and you didn't tell me, so
please don't talk to me. Yeah. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna write to her because I want that baby. Like it's maddening.
He should be raised with us. Like, no, well, oh.
So then we cut to Shay traveling to Opia, where Doru is, with only Hami and Woon. She finds Doru in a hut with a 13-year-old girl, and then she can't even kill him.
And, yeah, she's supposed to go there to assassinate this man,
yes.
and she essentially, what happens is she just
takes his opinion into consideration over the mountain.
And this is what infuriates me, is like, I get it that she has a complicated relationship with her grandfather and with Doru, but the way that she is so willing to like extend
all
sympathy,
the grace in the world to this man,
to these people who are literally terrible. Like, she should not have just let Doru like, here's my Jade, and now I'm going to take care of this myself.
So he had a 13-year-old girl in there with him. Like, what do you think he was doing? Like, I understand he was dying.
You know,
he was
his
terrible
history.
person. So it's disgusting. But
and
anyway.
then it's like she then, because like Hami is like upset with this and is like, seriously, you couldn't
even kill him.
You didn't do it. And she's like, well, great, now I've lost his respect. And it's like, well, you've lost mine too, because I
understand that violence isn't the
interaction.
Answer, but it's like the way she disregards all of her feelings and emotions and like knowledge of him, because he is an extension of grandpa. Like, it's awful.
Where she's like, this man is the man that I knew as an uncle all this time growing up, and
it's like,
I really respected him, and he had a lot of good opinions. And it's like, no, don't you remember the awful thing that happened to your friend? Like,
right?
What the heck?
And so he does speak to her for alone a bit. He admits like he would have followed her instructions to stay with her grandpa, but he insisted, and it's like her grandpa was not well, so good on that one.
Well, it's like,
so
I would have followed your instructions, but the thing was, I trusted your grandpa more than anything, and he was the one that told me to do this.
He insisted, even though he didn't know what had happened.
Right. It's like, you are the biggest freaking liar in the face of the planet. And
he admits he tried to give them info at the mountain. He was like, I really tried to give info to the mountain for your and Andon's protection, because I know you like Andon, but they refused. And then he wouldn't give them anything. And it's like, how is he not dead yet?
Well, and then he says, basically, he's like, I'm not worth anything to anyone now because I've kind of played all my cards. So.
And I have cancer, so they just let me die, you know. And he tells her to ingratiate herself with the next ruler of the mountain, because Ike doesn't have any progeny. She realizes she can't kill him, like we said, and Hami loses respect because he ends up killing himself really quickly, and also like putting her in danger because she didn't move fast enough.
Yeah, because she didn't even like sense that he was going to do this. And generally, like, Greenbones should be able to like have some kind of perception that this is going to happen. They can perceive people in like different rooms.
Usually it's if they're wearing Jade, and since he had taken it off, she couldn't perceive it.
She should have known something was up the minute he took that Jade off.
I know. But she even gets him like a proper burial, which makes me so mad. Where I'm like,
I hate that too, where she's like, take this person up here and do this, and it's like, no,
him near an old rebel camp, and it's like,
he needs to just leave him there. Like, no.
Yeah. We find out that Wen has been going to an all-women spa where she has a bunch of spies come in, which I do like that.
This is interesting, because like the people that she uses as like her main informants are like hairdressers and like people in the
service industry.
You and I know for sure, like from our own experiences, they're the ones getting the info on people in real life, and it's like, this is extremely relatable,
right? And so like sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not, but it's always like helpful to keep these contacts. And like she's getting people out of bad situations, and she's like talking them through it and talking them about how to like leave bad husbands or like, you know, work with everyone. And this is also a well-known mountain and no peak territory, so it's easier to do it here. So she's smart.
And she's also like aware of the fact that she can be there safely just because she knows like people aren't going to come for her because she doesn't wear jade, and also
Yeah.
because people are just going to be like, oh yeah, the pillar's
Silly wife.
She's kind of like really into going to the spa all the time.
She's at the spa again. She considered telling Hilo about this, but she knows he wouldn't support her. She also kind of talks about how she wants her own business one day, but she is now expected to be his wife. Like, and that's
and
it.
she's expecting to. So it's
so it's like, well, she's gonna be a mother, and that's it. She asks around about the Coben family, who we find out had a daughter married to one of Ite's brothers and had a baby with him, but she also hated him. So,
because that's the other thing that we're learning about all throughout this is like, we now know that the Calls have some like further lineage to take over when they're gone, but they're looking into this and they're like, okay, what does the mountain have in terms of sustaining their clan? And they're like, once Mata is gone, what is there?
Right.
She has no
progeny.
Plan.
So we look at the Cobens, and they're the child of her brother is currently 9, so he won't be the heir apparent yet. He's like training right now, and they don't know how powerful he is. There are 2 other families who are in the running: the Venn family, who are influential, but almost they're a little bit too much, and they're trying to get too much power from Ite right now. And then we have the Yue family, who just had the weatherman. They just became the weatherman because she blamed her weatherman for the mining issues.
She kind of threw the weatherman under the bus and was like, "Oh, well, you're out. I need a new one."
But it's noted that the Yue family, they're prone to the itches, so similar to Annan's family. We cut to Shay telling the family about it, pretending it didn't just come from Wen. And they note that the Ues are loyal, the Vens aren't, but it looks like it will be the Cobens who end up taking control. So if they can ingratiate themselves, it makes them less likely to be a target to Ite, which at that moment I was like, huh?
I don't understand how that is the logic between them, but
I don't think that it's going to stop Ite from murdering all of you. Like, huh? It doesn't make sense.
And then Hilo's like, get me in touch with the rich ones that are kind of too much. And it's like, okay, that's an interesting choice to have made.
Oh, Hilo. Then we cut on over to Andon, who's getting used to Espinia, and he finds out there are 30 to 40 green bones there. I love Fonda Lee's she's like, well, I did bring that up in the last book. So Shay just liked to live at the university, so she didn't know about this. So Andon is sitting in the park one day, and he accidentally gets into a fight after someone calls him a thief, and we find out that's a horrible thing to say. Well, we did find out in the last book that it's a horrible thing to say to a green bone. So he's like, he
takes it extremely personally.
And the guy's like, fine, fight me. And he's like, okay, I'll fight you. And then the guy ends up beating up the guy who does a perfect rendition of "My father will hear about this," and runs away. And then he goes back to the Hinds, and he's like, hey, this just happened. And his name was Carson Sunter, because he said his name, which is also the name of someone who would scream, "My father will hear about this." Carson Sunter definitely screamed that in his lifetime. They're like, "Ooh, you're in trouble," because he's one of the gang members. So we're going to go to the pillar in South Trap. And we find out that there's a quote unquote pillar here. Named Duck Lasonian. He's very kind, and he's kind of the person who takes care of all the Kekanese in the area. They all eat dinner together, and Andon is shocked to see how Duck treats everyone like they're a person. And then Koru comes in, who's Duck's son, and he is the kid who was on the bike. And so he is studying to be a lawyer with his siblings, and he goes by Corey. They share Andon's background being one of the Calls, and it interests Corey. And then Doc Lusan says that the One Mountain clan got him out of Kekon, back when it was a One Mountain clan, when his family needed it. So he has a strong affinity to help Andon. And he said he'll talk to Boss Cromner's people and the Skinny Reams to deal with Carson Center. And so we also meet Ron Toro. Who's
basically the horn.
And then Andon's like, hey, Mrs. Duck is a weatherman, and they've made their own piece of home here.
I think that this whole chapter is super interesting because it shows the community of these people, and it really reminds me of how immigrants create a community and a culture in another country and hold on to their own culture in another country and celebrate their own legacy, even though it's different and it looks different. So I thought this was really well written.
I think this is, and it's amazing because like I also think Fonda Lee just does such an expert job of like weaving in like a lot of Hilo's own racism within like the intra community that they have around them.
Right.
And then like you get to see how Andon faces racism once he leaves. And like Andon like understands how his world works, but it's because like Espinia is such a different culture that he like misses a step, and it's not his fault. He's not like he's not wrong in what he's doing. He's just living his life and he doesn't understand. And he's always like talking through different types of barriers. So I do think that this is also excellently done with the way like when you're an immigrant like community, you can be looked down upon, even though like it's very integral to how the world often works. And I thought she did a really good job with that. So Doc says that he will do this as a favor to Andon and help him, and hints that he could ask for something from his family. And Andon like is very vulnerable and admits to him that he is not well in status of the No Peak clan. And he's like, you can help me and I will be grateful to you. And he was like, don't worry. Like I was once exiled for like extending reasons. So I understand. And like, I trust you. And then we cut on over to Shay, who's meeting with the Espinians, and she tells them not to expect any more Jade, but gives them info on the Yucatanians getting SN1 from another source, like hinting at the mountain. And you can tell that the Espinians like do not get or respect the Greenbone clans. Like they're uncomfortable when she makes requests of them. They're like super weird about like how certain customs are followed. They're just not good at following it. And as like payment for their gift, they like offer her money, and she's like, nope, I would like you to talk to outside sources about lowering tariffs for things that aren't Jade, because like we want to become like better in some other areas. And they're like, we can't make those promises. And she's like, well, I'm giving this to you, so you will try. And then they're kind of like, why isn't Hilo here? And she's like, well, and she's thinking like, because he gets bored by this and I don't trust him. And then she's like, well, I speak for the pillar. Then we have Hilo traveling to Steppenland and just showing up where Ani is and going like straight to her. She's shocked to see him. He does meet his nephew for like the first time, even though she says that the baby's napping. He like comes out and
he's awake. He's a toddler, you know, he's kind of like,
but she hides him away like immediately. She states she didn't answer 2 of his letters on purpose because obviously, and she doesn't want her son raised in John Loon with the killing and all the issues there. And he's kind of horrified that she thinks this. And it's like, well, her ex-husband was murdered.
Yeah.
So
obviously she has a reason. Like she has a lot of trauma surrounding this whole experience. Why would she want to be thrown back in it? And he's like, kind of, but fancy house and your boyfriend can come.
I give you a nanny.
Like, yeah. I don't think so.
And he needs to be raised among his people where he is seen as a prince. And she's like, I don't want him to be a prince. I want him to be alive. Like
I value his safety.
Well, and he's like, you wrote Land to come. And she was like, yeah, like 2 years ago when I was depressed,
like father, like
changed. Yeah. And she's like, Land's dead. It's not the same. My son won't be an underling of yours. And he could tell she sees him as a thug. And he says that like, coming home as the firstborn of a pillar is Nico, and he keeps calling him Nico. His name is Nicholas. He's like, it's his birthright. Her boyfriend comes home and it's like super micro and macro aggressions abound.
Yeah.
He calls her exotic. He says like, oh, she's so secretive about where she comes from. And it's like, oh God.
I don't like him either, but it's just like,
well, and later he was like, he was so nice. And I was like, no, he was awful.
No.
But he says he's the uncle and they should get together to discuss maybe having Nico spend part of the year in KCON. And the boyfriend's like, that's an awesome idea because she's going to push out way more babies.
And like, we were thinking about having more kids. So it'd be great if
to get him one of our hands
out of the way for half the year.
Like, especially if it's not my kid. And so she's like, oh,
like that.
And so we cut on over to Shay. She asks if she's like talking to Marrow and she's like, does it ever bother you that I wear so much Jade? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, because I feel inadequate.
Yeah, but we find out that he's actually half Shotaran, even though his entire family lied to him for a very long time, saying he was like born from a greenbone who died in battle. And it actually really affected him because when he found out it was on his mother's deathbed, and he was like, an entire portion of my life was kept secret from me. I explained a lot of why I wasn't excelling at the academy. And like, I didn't like, I feel less than, but I also feel like I didn't get a piece of myself. So
Yeah.
he has reached out to his birth family. That's where the two nieces came from. He has like a
Mm-hmm.
closer relationship with his half sisters, but not his father or the father's wife, because the father remarried. But he's like, he said his grandparents.
But he's like, that's why I got into the work that I'm in, because
Yes.
I just became fascinated with this because I was trying to learn about myself. So
and he says like one of his grandparents is still living, but they pretend that he doesn't know and like it doesn't exist, because they feel like it brings shame on the family name.
mm-hmm.
He also wants kids. He mentions like, I hope when I pop out babies, they're just like my nieces. And it's like, well, he wants you to have children right now, Shay. He asks if it bothers her who he is. And again, she's like, nah, I abandoned. It's not that
like,
surprising.
No, this isn't that dissimilar from my cousin's story. So no, it's
then
fine.
a moment I hate even more. She goes to work and Woon tries to resign because
he's in love
with her, question mark. I hated this so much. Like, no.
Here's the thing, where it was like, it was okay when it was just like Hilo kind of joking about it and we're like, oh, that's not a thing. And then it's like, why did this become a thing?
It's a thing. And also, like, you know what? Do you know how many crushes I've existed with in a space of work? You don't have to quit. There's no reason to quit when you have a crush on someone. Like,
well, it's like he also brings up like the guilt over Lan too. He's like, I'm letting down Lan and you, and it's like, you didn't really let her down at all. How did you let her down? Like, this is weird. And she's like, no, you better just keep your job because we're really good friends and I need you and I trust you. And then she like has this moment where she's like, yeah, she does guilt trip him, but then she has this moment where she's like, maybe I should be with him. And it's like,
I know. And
know where that's heading.
It's also super freaking weird because Hammy walks in and it's like he looks at them suggestively and it's like, why would he know? Why would he know what's going on? It's her
like telling everyone, like,
right.
Here's the thing. I hate my job because I'm in love with Shay. And it's like
Woon is like just sitting there like drawing little hearts over her face.
Yeah.
It's like, I was just like, he looks at them.
It's like that's a credit application. What are you doing?
Like, I just hate it so much when it's like, I'm like, this is definitely plot witching, where it's like, because she now knows, everyone has to know. Because like, Hami doesn't need to know that. Like, it's her shadow. She literally calls him her shadow. Them being in the office talking together would not be suspect.
It should not be suspicious at all. Like,
don't be suspicious.
Yeah.
So whatever. He's like, hey, the Aspedians just invaded Ortaco. So stop talking about your love lives, because obviously I know you're doing that. But they hear speeches from their government showing that they didn't see it coming. And Ait was there speaking for all green bones. And it kind of looks bad on No P Clan because Hilo isn't there. And so she calls him to get him there ASAP. Hilo is like, well, we have to go back. So I'll go talk to Ani to see if we can make dinner for tonight. And he finds out she's trying to run from him because she doesn't.
She has some bags packed and she was afraid.
Similar to Andon, she says her son won't be a monster and she won't let him take Nico or see him. She doesn't want these people in her life. She threatens to call the police because like he just walked in. And he does get her to put down the phone, and he asks just to see her son one more time. And she's like, no. And again, this is where Hilo is like, I'm such a great guy until you do exactly what I don't ask you to. And then it's my right to come down on you.
Predictable, but still unsettling. Like,
because it happens so fast and for no reason. Like they're in the middle of an argument. And it hasn't ended. Like all she has said is like, you're not seeing my child. We're not doing this. And then he just runs at her, grabs her.
She goes and turns around, walks away. And he like comes at her from behind and kills her.
Kills her using channeling.
Brutally.
And then this is such a horrifying moment where he lays her down. He goes and he picks up Nico. And then he lets the baby say goodbye to the dead body, saying she's sleeping.
Yeah, he says, she's sleeping. Come on, let's go, Nico. She's sleeping. Leave mom alone.
And then he immediately tells Tar to take care of the boyfriend later.
He's like, but we're nicely leaving.
Yeah.
But
you need help. I need help.
Quiet way.
I need help changing the birth certificate because it needs to have Lan's name on it so I can take him on the plane. Or I think it might have his name on it now, but I don't know.
I was going to say it's blank. So we don't know at this point whose name is on it.
Right.
Because I'm assuming that
he'll put his own name down.
Put his own name down. That it'll be
his
Hilo.
son. And so he renames him Nikoyan.
Because
So
he's like,
it's
this is a
Kekanese.
Kekanese name. How perfect.
And they
It's like,
fly home. And 6 years later, Rulin Shin
6
is
months or 6 weeks later.
6 weeks, yeah. Rulin Shin is born, a little boy, and Hilo is like, you two will take care of each other now. And he is now Daddy Hilo to Lan and Hilo, I'm guessing. And this is us getting to the first interlude. We discuss a person in history of the Toon Empire, Ganlu, a warrior, healer, philosopher, who advised the emperor. They talk about how they didn't know where he came from when he first came to shore, but he was a foreigner from the West. He traveled a long time and he was confronted with crime and immorality and helped all along the way. He taught martial arts skills and tried to push for peaceful living. It is the basis for Tuni fighting arts. And then it talks about how he had been summoned by the emperor after he found out about this wonderful person. He refused 3 times to show his virtues. And then he was a great counselor to him. They said everyone agrees that Ganlu was Kekanese, and they have a great resemblance to Abuke folklore and pre-data spirituality. He was most likely the 3rd son of King John during a specific period, but Kekan has no record of the man, just an unnamed reference to a young prince lost. And thus ends the first section of this book with really like a harrowing moment. Yeah, it was real bad. It was pretty bad, Laura. Yeah. So
it was unsettling. Like I said, I figured something like this was going to occur, but the way in which it happened was a lot. And like we've mentioned before, like even when we were talking with Fonda Lee, like she's not afraid to just punch us in the gut. And here she did it again.
She really did. So yeah, Laura, what are you thinking so far?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts. It's hard to just like summarize how I'm feeling at this point because this book is so complicated. And I think it's one of those things where it's like I have frustrations with the characters and things that are happening, but I'm still really enjoying the book. And I think it's just because it's like really well written and that it's just so real, you know what I mean? Even though it's weird to say about like a fantasy book, like, oh, this is so real, but the dynamics and complications between these family members are just so well written and believable that it just really draws you into the book. And like you and I both said, like, it seems like a lot happens, but it's so easy to read this first section. And it is. And it's like, I don't know if it's just, I can't even describe what it is that makes it so easy to read.
I will say that I was reading this book outside and a bird did poop on it today. And I think that was very harsh criticism coming from the bird.
It's a commentary on Woon and Shay.
I forget where he pooped, but I'm pretty sure it was when she was talking to the Aspenians. So that doesn't bode well.
Yikes. How are you feeling so far besides the bird poop?
I mean, I was pretty horrified when the bird pooped. So it pooped when the mountain and the no peak were coming to their agreement, so that doesn't bode well. We kind of saw that coming. I feel like this book is kind of a good shift because like it's the first third of the book, obviously, and I do like that it's kind of ending on a very dramatic note because we know that Hilo wanted to kill Ani for a really long time. And so it's interesting to see that finally happen and kind of how it happened, because I think in Hilo's mind, it was perfectly justified.
I was going to say, he thinks it's justified because he's like, we should have done this a long time ago. I told Lan it should have already happened.
Right.
And it's like, ugh. And then he thinks he's kind of securing the bloodline too. And it's just bad.
Yeah. And it's so interesting to read because like, a lot of this has tones of everyone keeps telling him like Lan wouldn't have wanted this. And it just shows like his like, well, I'm the pillar now, so I no longer have to respect Lan. And I think that comes through a lot in this, where he just feels like, again, I said this at the end of the last book, but like we see so much of Hilo, like the limit of his respect for people. And it's a pretty short line. Ani just had to tell him no, and he immediately shut down.
I think it's also evident, sorry to interrupt, it's also evident of like how Hilo lets people not respecting him get to him so easily that he's willing to just be extremely reactive. continue with what you're saying.
But no, I just think it's very interesting to see a continuation of these people make mistakes, because also you have Shay, who literally is like making the same mistakes over again by like just letting men live her life for her, because like Woon is doing that a little bit, Morrow is definitely doing that, and
I
like
guess
Doru.
that is interesting to point out. Like these are all like Shay's relationships seem terrible, but they all are kind of like little glimpses into like facets of her that she kind of wanted.
Yes, exactly. And so she kind of just tries on different things, and I think she just doesn't know what all she wants. And she kind of lets people walk all over her, and she lets moments happen to her. And then she just deals with the repercussions. And I think that that's a very strange, then that like was her when she talks about how she was like a spy, where it's like, oh, that kind of just happened to me. And it's like, you are an active participant in your own life, like, Shay.
You can say yes or no to things like whatever. And
then I think like it's interesting to see when I do like that we're getting a lot more perspectives this book. Like I'm very interested in the Mikes. I think they're a very interesting group of people.
It will be cool to see more of Tar and Ken going forward.
And so I really like the way she's setting up this book. I just can't wait to read more, because I think, you know, there are certain parts where it's like it's hitting all the tropes, but it's doing it really well.
In the best way.
Yes. And so I think in the last book it like undercut a lot of those tropes, and I feel like you and I just read the beginning of those, and then we're about to get undercut super hard, because we're like, oh look, a love interest, oh look, another love interest, oh look, a baby, oh look, another baby. So I'll be interested to see what Fonda Lee does with that.
Sure.
With that said, everyone, we'll be reading through chapter 42, I believe, next time.
42. Okay.
So 42, it's a little bit thicker, but again, not much is happening. So I have trust in us that we can get a little bit further in this, and then have a nice little ending where lots of plot stuff happens, I'm sure. So, chapters 23 through 42, not too much, but I hope everyone enjoys. And if you are enjoying, please make sure you're rating, reviewing, and subscribing. That's a really helpful way to get people to listen to this and join in the conversation.
Get them in the mix.
Also, check out our link tree that we're putting in our episodes now, because it tells you all about our Patreon and our Twitter and our Instagram and our Gmail, and how to find us on Spotify and our Discord. It has all of the above. So like,
please join the Discord, because we've been chatting a lot and using that lately. And I would love to have more people over there talking with us, because it's kind of fun.
Please come chat with us. So join us there. We chat about all the things. Sometimes we even talk about country bears for no reason. No, it's because we did a watch party and it was horrifying and amazing all at once.
I will watch that and suggest that a million times.
It makes no sense. Why are they hiding that that's a bear? He is obviously a bear, and there are other bears who exist. It's not a secret, but
gaslighting their son.
I feel like
anyways, but join our Discord, and we have a Patreon.
We have a Patreon. We have all the things. Join all the things. Come follow us along, because we're having a grand old time. And also make sure you checked out our last week's episode, the first of the bonus content in between books that we're doing. So that's also very exciting. So just keep an eye out for what's ahead. Our reading schedule is up on ourpod.com. I think I should be updating the reader stuff soon. And check out ourpod.com, because we just posted a TV Tuesday review by yours truly, Laura.
Yay.
So just keep an eye out for what's going on. We have a ton of stuff coming at you. And join us next week to discuss the next third of Jade War by Fonda Lee, a book that, according to Laura, is not that big. So.
It didn't look that big. It is really big.
It is really big.
My view of this book through Zoom, it looks like it's not a physically large book.
It's like 3 inches thick.
You held it up in a specific way.
It was specific. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.